A second, sorry, I'm still
Okay.
downloading my presentation because online streaming it's becoming a little slow. So just a minute,
Okay.
please.
Okay, ma'am. So by that time, I shall I start the introduction?
Yes, yes, please go
Okay.
ahead.
So good morning, everyone. I'm Pooja Lakshmi, and I'm an LLM student at GNLU and a senior associate of Pro Bono India. It is my distinct honor to welcome you all to the final session of our one-week online capacity building program on POSH Act. This initiative is jointly organized by the Pro Bono Club, Kashmir Law College, and Pro Bono India, and it represents a collective commitment to fostering safer and more inclusive environments in our workspace and communities. Today, as we celebrate Never Give Up Day, we are reminded of the incredible impact of perseverance and dedication. In this spirit of relentless pursuit of excellence, it is our honor to introduce our distinguished speaker, Nikita Opal. Ma'am is a passionate advocate and individual practitioner with a rich background in both legal practice and human rights advocacy. With a BLS LLB from Government Law College, Mumbai, and an LLM in Access to Justice from Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Ma'am is currently pursuing a PhD in Behavioral Sciences from National Forensic Science University, Gujarat. Her thesis explores the emotional impact of restorative justice intentions on child in conflict with law, demonstrating her deep commitment to justice and reform. Ma'am is also pursuing MA in Criminal Law and Forensic Science from NALSA and a certificate in Trauma Informed Care from Tata Institute of Social Sciences, further underscoring her dedicated to this field. So today, Nikita ma'am will be taking a session on international perspective on sexual harassment. Her expertise and insights will offer us a valuable understanding on this critical issue and how we can address it effectively now in various contexts. Over to you, ma'am. Ma'am, are you able to?
Sorry, just a minute, please.
Yes.
There's something really wrong with this today.
Okay, ma'am. If you
Usually it
want,
isn't
you can
that
share the
terrible.
PPT with us and we'll do this.
I'm sorry, no, there's just some streaming error. It should be fine now, I
Okay.
think. Just a minute. I will, because it is sharing, it's just hanging in between.
Yes,
So,
that's fine.
yes, I think it's fine now. Can
Yeah,
everybody
ma'am,
view
it's
the
visible.
screen? Yes.
It's visible,
All
ma'am.
right.
Can you try changing the slides if it is possible? Then
Yeah, I
the
think it's fine
slide
now.
is changing now.
Yeah, it's fine now. So, yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So, thank you so much for a very kind introduction. I'd also like to thank Kalpesh so providing me this opportunity. And of course, the subject matter is very sensitive that we're going to be discussing today. So, I just respect anybody's decision if they wish to leave the session because, we want to understand that some of the content today that we might be discussing will be triggering, will be uncomfortable, but it will also be a reality check for us. So we should just do what we feel comfortable doing. With that, I think Ma'am has already introduced me, so thank you so much. I have my LinkedIn page if anybody feels curious about my line of work. With that said, I'm going to have a little bit of a preliminary assessment. I mean, I understand you've had like a few days of training and understanding about the POSH Act, about sexual harassment, gender-based violence, violence against women, but we'll still try and do a little assessment to make sure that everybody is on the same page. Because what we're going to study later on today is going to be slightly more heavy, both legally and psychologically to absorb, I feel. So, this is kind of a roadmap that I have for today's talk. We'll do a bit of an assessment. We'll just keep it open, everybody can participate. We'll also try and understand about, how has the global response been when it comes to the Me Too movement, which stands at the heart of all sexual harassment allegations and instances. We'll also talk about the legal framework that, there are conventions which are binding in nature. There are guidelines, there are ILO related, uh, you know, uh, I'm forgetting the right terminology for it. It's non-binding in nature. So, how are those aspects being implemented? And to understand from a global perspective, we'll also try and do a best study scenario from the US perspective, from UK's perspective, India as well as Sweden. And from that, we will sort of conclude on what a best practice should be. And if time permits, we'll also try and do a case study and we'll come to a conclusion. I understand I've tried to contract a lot of things in, but we might have to study on the case studies, or what I feel at the current pace at least. So, please practice good mental health practices. If you need to take a break, please feel free to. With that being said, let's do an assessment. So, which of the following do you think qualifies as sexual harassment? Do we understand what is catcalling? The physical act of upskirting, disrobing somebody. Do we say touching is also sexual harassment? Would we say, is it all of them? Yes?
Yes, do you want us to unmute them, or they can? Let me do it 1 second. Yes, participant. Now you are free to unmute yourself if you want to respond. Vote as participant.
Sorry, yes. So, do we think all of these qualify as sexual harassment or not?
Yeah.
Sorry?
Yes.
Yes? All right, great. Nice to know. What about cyber flashing? Do we understand what is cyber flashing? So if you send an inappropriate picture or text to someone without their consent, would that qualify as sexual harassment?
Yes.
Yes. So we understand that, the sexual harassment can exist in a physical space. It can exist in a virtual space. It can be verbal, written in nature. It can be by the means of gestures, or it can also be a subjective experience. Do we all believe that? Do we all understand what is a subjective experience? Everybody, do I have them on the same page? Sorry, I'm not able to view the chat, so somebody is going to have to either let me know.
Okay, ma'am.
So
The chat is saying all of the above. Everyone is of the opinion.
Okay,
all
great.
Of them. That's
No, but do we understand what are subjective experiences of sexual harassment? Would anybody like to share an example? I mean, I'm sure I did see the schedule, and there was a session on cases in the Indian Perspective and POSH Act. So do we have any understanding about what a subjective experience of sexual harassment is?
Yes, any participant, you can unmute yourself or raise your hand.
Yeah, if not, then I will.
Well, I
Yes?
can say that it is not the intent, but the impact, maybe, which you are
Yes,
talking.
yes. Shamishna ma'am, you're absolutely right.
Thank you.
That is precisely what we're talking about. And ma'am, would you also like to share an example, or anybody else, if they feel comfortable? Could we have an example?
The example,
Yes, ma'am.
the
So
question.
subjective.
Oh, I'm so
Oh,
sorry.
sorry.
Sorry. How about we give Krupa ma'am an opportunity
Yeah,
to
please.
speak?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Yes,
Krupa
thank
ma'am,
you.
please.
Yes, ma'am. So subjective experience is when everybody has different opinion. Say, for
Yes.
example, hugging my coworker could be normal for me, but if some other lady take objection to it, so she can definitely file for sexual harassment. If I don't consider it sexual harassment, but she may consider it, and she is
Yes.
eligible to file a complaint for that.
Yes, but how will we know why her perspective is different, or how? Is it just the wording? Do we just believe everything for face value and accept that, yes, this is harassment for that person?
Not really, ma'am. It is about
Okay.
how the lady is feeling. If she is
So it is
feeling
her
that
word,
she is
right?
uncomfortable. Yes.
So do we do a litmus test on her? If she turns red, we know it is unacceptable. If it turns blue, it's not. Is it like that? How do we do that? How do you understand perspective of a person?
Ma'am, cultural background could be a factor.
Yes, very,
Her
very
upbringing
nice.
could be a factor.
Yes, absolutely right. So, another very good example for a situation like this would be, there are religious practices which forbid interaction of a female with a person of the opposite sex. Imagine if such a person is at work and a co-worker taps on the shoulder. Now, in a general parlance, we will accept a tap on a shoulder as acceptable. But understanding that person's religious background, cultural upbringing, how they've been raised, what they have seen, we need to respect and value that experience. And that is precisely how we have sort of encapsulated the concept of subjective experiences. So thank you. We'll move forward. What about this? Do we understand the aspect of the physical act of pressing as sexual harassment and staring as sexual harassment?
Yes.
Is
Yes,
staring
ma'am.
sexual harassment? So what
Definitely.
about, okay, so how about when I'm doing the session today, I'm staring at whoever has the video on at least. Would that qualify as sexual harassment? I am staring at the screen. The screen does have all of you. Would that qualify as sexual harassment?
Yes, if I feel uncomfortable with that.
But do we also want to maybe acknowledge the fact that in my situation right now, I am a trainer. It is expected out of me to stare or look.
Yes,
Would we
ma'am, it
say that?
depends on how you look. It
How
depends
you
on how you
look.
look.
Yes. So, again, the aspect of subjective experience comes in. So, so for most of us females, what I've actually observed is that we just do get a sense of someone if they are staring at us, right? We do get that somebody is looking perspective. So, again, the aspect of subjective experiences. So, this is something that I want all of us to stay with throughout the presentation. Okay, so let's just look at how the global response for the Me Too movement has been so far. So we understand that there was an activist, and back in 2006, Tarana Brooke, she sort of started this movement. It was initially restricted to people of color and the kind of discrimination that they face. However, it was only by 2017 that we had the actress Elisa Milano, who made a complaint about Harvey Weinstein and how the case has been so far. Everybody knows. We'll also discuss that later. So this is a bit of the origin aspect of how the Me Too movement has been. So globally, we've had immense response. We've had the Uber case. I've not discussed the Uber case. Maybe I should have discussed it, but we can try and keep it for the end. So if we look at the magnitude, we see these little red dots, which sort of charted a global response for how sexual harassment has been. And we see a lot of instances being raised online, in the US, a little bit in India, a lot of towards the EU region also. However, a little scattered when it comes to other parts of the world. See here for Australia and all. So with this, let's try and understand. This has been the actual impact that we can see visually. But what has really happened in the physical space? So we'll do a bit of a review. Okay. So, are we all aware of the Tarun Tejpal case, the Tehelka case, which was one of the first cases pertaining to sexual harassment in India within the POSH legislation, at least, and it has recently been overturned by the Supreme Court, and he's finally got a not guilty verdict. So we see this. Are we all aware of a brief fact about the Tarun Tejpal case? We had one of his interns who had raised a complaint, and because the instance was around 2013 and the POSH legislation was fairly new, the domestic inquiry process was not followed properly. So it led to a lot of chaos and backlash, and then what has eventually happened is that we have a not guilty verdict here. On a recent level, we see, yes, the Brijbhushan case, which almost took a year to get the FIR filed. So that is how we see an actual response, this is the reality on board. Are we aware of the CGI case, the Ranjan Gogoi case? Everybody? Anybody? Are we aware of what happened in this case? And I understand we're doing a little bit of national perspective right now. We are going to move to the international one, not to worry. So yes or no, please, I would like some response. Because if not, I will give you a brief about the case. Otherwise, I'm going to assume that everybody knows.
Ma'am, is this the same case where he himself was the judge in the case?
Yes. So he had his stenographer who had made a complaint of sexual harassment against the sitting Chief Justice of India. And we also had him preside over his own matter, which is gross travesty. And, there's a conflict of interest. And just basic principles of natural justice here are not being adhered to, abuse of power. So we see this as another instance of how a sexual harassment case has been dealt with. Internationally, let's go to China a little. So in China, we had this actress who has made a complaint about a Chinese screenwriter, and she has had a slightly more adventurous route towards Me Too movement, because the Me Too movement in China is censored and it's regulated very strongly by the government. So here is an instance where the court, when they were conducting a hearing, have given the screenwriter a not guilty verdict. And we can see these images where she's literally in tears, and she said that she's going to go ahead with an appeal. So let's see how that works out within the Chinese perspective, at least. From the US, we have the Harry Weinstein case, who has more than 26 women complaining about everything from aggravated assault to human trafficking to gender-based violence. So we see how this has been. He's currently serving a trial. However, he's also supposed to go for an appeal, because what turned out was that some of the victims' narratives were sort of erroneously admitted in court. So how do we see that? So basically, this is also going to be maybe set aside, who knows, but this is on the US perspective. We also have Donald Trump, who has been former president and who's had women around the world make allegations against him. And in a recent case, the court has told him to go ahead and proceed with a settlement, not a settlement, sorry, a compensation amount for US dollars 83.3 million, which, so we see that at an international level, unfortunately, we are not seeing conviction unless and until it's something like this. Maybe the Larry Nassar case. Are we aware of the Larry Nassar case? My fellow participants, would anybody have any idea about this? Yes, no? Have I lost most of you here?
One response, two response, no.
No,
People are not
sorry.
aware.
Okay, all right. So Larry Nassar was actually he was a orthopedic and a physiotherapist for the U.S. national gymnast team, and he has had a series, years of allegations of sexual harassment against him and inappropriately interacting with minors as well as adults and teenagers who are training to be gymnasts. And it took at least 14 years worth of cumulative cases against him for courts to finally accept these charges. He's currently serving a prison sentence, but it took 14 years. So, just look at the timeline that we are dealing with here. All right. So this is another case. We also had some mixed response when it comes from EU. So we had an Italian case where the judge literally ruled that, you know what, the survivor is too masculine, so I don't think she's an actual victim of violence. So we see a victim blaming aspect also very much present in the EU perspective. So this is one instance. Locally, however, one case which has been rather special is where the complainant becomes the accused and the accused becomes the complainant. Any idea what we're talking about? What section of the Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita maybe would we be discussing here? Any idea? We're talking about defamation, right? So we had M.J. Akbar, who was a journalist and also a sitting member of the parliament. I'm unaware if it was the Rajya Sabha or the Lok Sabha. I think it's the Rajya Sabha. I'll have to confirm that. Apologies. And we had Priya Ramani, who had made an allegation against him, only to find out later that he had done a counter litigation of a defamation case against her. And the court, however, held that Priya Ramani's right to talk about the instance and was and what other people have subjected around her is her prerogative, and something which in the Indian context victims of sexual harassment have often been denied this. So it's very important to give survivors a space to talk, and hence the court set aside this case. So Priya Ramani has the free right to go ahead and discuss whatever instance that she feels comfortable discussing with. So from the international perspective, what we've concluded is that the aspect of sexual harassment cannot exist in isolation. It is often coupled with defamation case, something that we saw in the MJ Akbar case, where it's very important that people feel that we have to protect your reputation. Not only that, we also have to ensure that the person who has made the complaint against you has made a false complaint. So it's a very important tool for the powerful and the rich, because if you have an allegation, you can do a counter litigation and you can also wind them up with court process. The other aspect which we observed from the China perspective was that of censorship. So in China, we have something known as Weibo, which is the Chinese social media. So that has banned the use of hashtag #MeToo, and so much so in China, we've also seen detention of feminists who've been trying to raise complaints of sexual harassment through social media. And we've also had their posts removed. They've also undergone detention. So it just showcases the nature and extent to which sexual harassment allegations are being curbed internationally. The other aspect that we've also found is backlash and retaliation. Now, the examples of this could be everything. I mean, in MJ Akbar's case, the very fact that Priya Ramani has to undergo talks about this in the newspaper every day is an aspect of backlash and retaliation, whether we like to acknowledge it or not. However, more common examples of backlash and retaliation can be demotion, a transfer, reduction in salary, or also social ostracization. Because other than the allegation, which is very tough to come out in itself, we also need to understand the fact that the global response, or even the community response that females or anybody who's actually a victim of sexual harassment receives is widespread and quite difficult, honestly, to tackle with. We are all aware of what all would amount as backlash and retaliation, right? Like, we do understand the very concept of it, right? Yes? No? Because then
Yes,
otherwise, yes?
yeah,
All right, okay, okay.
any participants like to
Do we
share your views
understand?
on this? Yes, anyone?
So if I fire someone after an allegation of sexual harassment, would you think that qualifies as backlash and retaliation? Yes, no? Any idea? What would we qualify that as?
Yes, some are responding. Yes, yes.
Yes? We do understand that. Okay, so yes, that is right. We understand that if you are a victim of sexual harassment and you raise a complaint and you're immediately fired or demoted, we will count that as backlash and retaliation. So if we find the trickle-down effect of Me Too movement, we have a global platform. You raise an allegation, but at a literal level, we are in a position to ask, then what? What is the conviction and the prosecution rate? And if we look at the trickle-down effect, very few people have actually been convicted. This is just the stats from US. I don't have a global statistic on this, but we can very well conclude that that the global response towards the conclusion has been low to abysmal at a certain level. So with that, we will shift to binding conventions and treaties. And what is the framework? So internationally, if there is an allegation of sexual harassment, what are the options that I have? Now, I'd like to start with the UN instruments. and of course you have the Declaration of Human Rights, you have ICCPR, ICESCR, you have the CEDAW Convention, you have the Convention for the Rights of Protecting People with Disabilities. We also have the convention which talks about the rights of migrant workers and their families. So these are some international instruments which are talking about women's safety, and they're also talking about how a workplace should be conducive, productive, and habitable for people. We also have the UN General Assembly resolution, which is a declaration of elimination of violence against women. And we understand within Venn diagrams, the aspect of violence against women has also a smaller Venn diagram of sexual harassment within it. Is everybody aware of the sentence that I just said? Did everybody understand Venn diagrams? Or I'll try and define it in a better way, maybe. Because we do understand violence against women would include all forms of violence, be it economic, psychological, physical, in nature, or access to reproductive rights, say, for example, and how an intersection of all of these could also be sexual harassment. So CEDAW is the preliminary legislation and convention at the international level, which has provided a platform for women to be protected within the domestic legislations to raise a complaint for sexual harassment and seek the redressal. So unfortunately, at an international level, if you alone have been a victim of sexual harassment, you might not find the platform for the International Court of Justice or the International Criminal Court for such instances. We will have to rely on the domestic legislation for providing women an opportunity to raise a complaint and seek redressal. We also have the Iowa Convention on Violence and Harassment. This is fairly recent, and this is also talking about how the global community needs to make sure that there is a common framework to address such violence, and how not only the addressing should be gender specific, but it should also focus on integrating all kinds of gender-based violence. So we have another convention like this. We also have some non-binding resolution. We have a Beijing platform for action, which also talked about how multiple stakeholders need to come together to have a more coordinated response towards anti-sexual harassment law, and how should the prevention mechanisms be. So we see this is all advisory in nature. We also have the Sustainable Development Goals, which talks about the fifth mandate being that of gender equality. And within it, it has subsets of ensuring that discrimination against women and girls is eliminated. There is also no violence against women. There is no practice of child marriage or coerced aspects where you are coerced under domestic work, or you are denied participation in leadership decisions, or also you have no access to sexual or reproductive health rights. So we see that at an international perspective, it is all quite varied at a certain level. So which helps us come back to a situation which is more where I would want to ask all of you a question. So is sexual harassment a civil or a criminal action? What would we say it is? Any idea? Would anybody want to respond to this? Because it is going to help us understand how internationally the subject matter is being dealt with. But any thoughts on this? I'm sorry, I'm not going to have access to the chat, because if I read the chat, then the screen just goes short. So
most of the responses it's criminal.
Sorry.
Both
Oh
are
yes, I can actually access the chat. I'm so sorry. Apologies. Okay. So
under POSH it's civil, otherwise it's criminal. Mostly
Sorry,
it's
no, repeat. Please repeat.
Ma'am, the answer is mostly under POSH it's civil, otherwise it's criminal, or mostly people are saying criminal. And
Okay.
then civil.
All right. Okay. So is because we would have done the training, is everybody aware of section 13 and 15 of the POSH Act? 13 being the ICC's report and 15 being something known as compensation. Any idea?
Yes.
Right? So Sharmisha ma'am, would you want to share how both these provisions are very vital in sort of maybe concluding the nature of whether the POSH Act is civil or criminal in nature?
I think it is civil because
Okay.
when the first complaint is being made,
Okay.
we can settle it before we go to the court as well, right? The first step can be
Yes,
done.
fair. Yes,
So
absolutely.
if we consider that, then maybe we can consider it to be a civil.
Yes,
civil
that
litigation.
seems to be fair. But ma'am, I was so okay. I don't want to bother you more, ma'am. How about the other participants? How about when we see section 13 and 15 of POSH Act? 13 being that of what a report of the internal complaints committee is, and 15 being that of provision. Would everybody want me to share the provisions here on screen with you so you can have a better look? Wait, let me do that, so that we understand why we've done the POSH Act, right? You guys did the provisions of the Act for the session, right? Yes? Okay, so we have the POSH Act here. Let's look at section 13. So this talks about something known as an inquiry report. And we have section 15. Would anybody want to read the highlighted portion for me, and what is it that I'm trying to highlight here? So it says, okay, let me do it myself. So for the purpose of determining the sum to be paid to the aggrieved woman under clause 2 subclause 3 of section 13, so this is with reference to this, which is considered to be anybody who is aggrieved with the inquiry report can take an appeal in the necessary platform, appeal being in section 18. And then it says the internal committee or the local committee, as the case may be, shall have regard to. So in legal interpretation, do all of us know what shall is? I understand majority of my audience here today is law students. So we've studied interpretation of statutes. How do we interpret the terminology shall? Would anybody like to comment on that? What does shall mean? What does may mean? Any idea what is it that I'm trying?
Shall is mandate. It's compulsory.
Yes. So it means that in every case of sexual harassment where there is mental trauma, pain, suffering, emotional distress, loss of career opportunity, medical expense, or where the income of and financial status of the respondent is relevant and the feasibility of such payment in lump sum, the internal committee shall give regard to these things and pay a compensation. So we need to understand that in a civil law structure, originally compensation cannot be mandated. It can be given as an aspect, but it cannot be mandated. But we see here is a very interesting intersection for civil and criminal law both. So to be very honest, even I don't know whether the POSH Act is civil or criminal. Of course, it's not criminal in the fact that we cannot make an FIR on the POSH Act. We can make it on the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita section 75 now. Then that way you can have a criminal response. But the very fact that the mandate behind a compensation is there is also talks about how there are elements of criminal law being implemented within the structure. So this was just a very interesting aspect I thought that should be shared with everybody. All right, so we'll go back to the previous presentation. Sorry, just a minute. Sorry, is the screen visible? Yes. All right. So we understand when it comes to criminal liability or civil liability, we understand criminal liability will always have some form of imprisonment. However, civil liability can have a monetary component of the punishment aspect in it. And how we see that within the POSH Act, because we have our penal code also criminalizing it, a woman has recourse in either of these platforms for her. So with that, we're coming to a comparative chart, and I'm sorry that the chart is not necessarily going to be as interactive, but I'll try and make it bearable for all of us. So if we look at India, of course, in the civil perspective, we have the POSH Act, and in the criminal perspective, we have the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. From China, we have a PRC civil code, which talks about laws on the protection of women's rights and interests. It has a civil aspect of sexual harassment. Now, it's also important to understand that in China, a sexual harassment can be criminal only if there is violence involved. So yes, it is a criminal act then. So if there is physical assault, if there is use of weapons, coercion, criminal, any criminal component involved, in that case, it will be counted as a criminal act. However, if it is just sexual harassment, maybe at workplace in the nature of maybe a funny joke, might not necessarily have recourse within the criminal framework in China. In Sweden, we have both. We have the Discrimination Act, which talks about it as a civil aspect, and in the criminal perspective, we have Chapter 6, Section 10, which talks about sexual molestation. So it has a more physical component to it at a certain level, is what we can conclude. The UK also has the same aspect, the one being civil aspect being in the Equality Act. But within the criminal aspect, it will only be the physical aspect of aggravated assault being rape or sexual assault, where it becomes or qualifies as a criminal act. In the US, we have something similar. We have the Civil Rights Act, which talks about prohibition of sexual harassment and how it being a civil remedy, and it will be criminal if there is aspect of violence involved. So we understand that how different countries are having a very mixed approach towards the aspect of sexual harassment, and which also brings us to a position. How do you think we should deal with sexual harassment? Do you think it should be a civil remedy? Do you think it should be criminal, or do you think it is both? I mean, it should be both. And I would like to know some response on this to sort of
It should be both.
It should be both. Yes, absolutely. I think that's a fair way to go ahead. I also think that the Criminal Act or the Civil Act should also focus a little bit more on the reformation of people who have been accused. And at the risk of receiving a lot of mixed response on my statement, I think it's also important to understand that that maybe not every allegation is it's not the end of your life. There is scope for reform, there is need for improvement, and I think that is also a very important essence which at a certain level has been ignored at a certain level. We'll also do a comparative study when it comes to a few components. So let's focus on definition. So if we look at the definition of how the scope of sexual harassment has been, do they include the hostile workplace definition? Again, I will have to go back on asking a few questions from the POSH Act. Are we all aware of what is hostile workplace sexual harassment? Yes, because I'm assuming that you've done these things in your classes.
Yes, ma'am, we have covered it.
Yes?
Yes.
So we understand that the aspect of hostile workplaces is very open-ended, it's very subjective, and India has a very open definition towards protecting that. China, not so much. So much so we see both when it comes to the UK and the Sweden, it also has something known as reference to dignity. So it says that if your own personal dignity and respect feels violated, you can also raise a complaint, which is also an extension of a subjective experience of sexual harassment. So I think this is where the terminology, as much as sexual harassment deals with the aspect of dignity and respect, it does not emphasize the aspect of dignity as much. So we definitely have that. When it comes to the other indicator, that being what types of behavior, be it physical, verbal, visual or written forms of sexual harassment, we see that mostly all countries are complying with this aspect, and they have a very open-ended aspect of the definition for sexual harassment. If we look at what our settings covered, so for example, if we're only talking about sexual harassment at the workplace or also outside, we see both India, UK, and Sweden say that yes, it can be inside as well as outside anywhere. However, in the Chinese and the US perspective, we need to focus that sexual harassment outside, when it involves a physical aspect of assault or aggravated assault, that is when it will be considered as sexual harassment, something which will be explored within their criminal acts then. On the other aspect, when we talk about how international conventions are and what is the perspective, which is when it comes to say CEDAW. So CEDAW, all of the above parties are signatories to CEDAW. We have the International Covenant for Civil and Political Rights, the same for that. We have the International Covenant for Civil and Cultural Rights, sorry, yes. So we have all except the US, however, is only a signatory, however, has not ratified the convention. The Convention on the Rights for People with Disabilities, again, the US has not ratified the convention, however, rest all parties have. The ILO Convention, which is the most recent convention on violence and harassment, has only been ratified and signed by Sweden, not by the rest of the parties. So we see how the international legislation is geared towards the aspect of sexual harassment. We also talk about a few preventive measures. So the most interesting thing that I came across is that of employer responsibility. So yes, India has employer responsibility, but it's only to provide assistance for a female if she wants to raise a criminal complaint, or just disclose in your annual report how many cases of sexual harassment have been there. In China also, there is some mandate when it comes to supporting a female who wants to raise a complaint. In the UK, there has now been a mandate where if you as an employer know about an instance of sexual harassment and you try and suppress it or not disclose it, then you will also have criminal action against you. So we see this as a very interesting aspect. Nothing, however, in Sweden and US, which sort of focuses on an employer responsibility. So for redressal mechanisms, what we've seen is all countries have a workplace redressal mechanism. So there will be an internal complaints committee or an equivalent committee to deal with sexual harassment at a workplace. If we see online redressal, are all of us aware about SheBox? Do we know what is SheBox? Would all of you want to take a look? Yes?
Complaint box for this kind of
yes.
complaints.
Yes. Do we also know there's something known as POXO e-box for young children, girls who are... Yes. So that's also very important. I am not discussing the ambit of children within this, because we are only concerned with the POSH Act right now, and there are no children at the workplace. And in fact, I have a very interesting question. If a worker brings a child to work and the child is a victim of sexual harassment, can the child seek, can the internal complaints committee do anything for such a child? Any idea?
No, it will be referred to POXO.
Right?
Yes.
For sure. Why? What is the mandate behind that?
Because under 18, the sexual abuse of the children is dealt under the POXO Act.
Yeah, but why is it dealt with under the POXO Act? There is a particular terminology. What is it that I'm thinking? Rita ma'am, you're on the right track. Think more.
Ma'am, it is CCL.
Yes, it could be CCL. It could be CNCP. The key aspect being confidentiality.
Yes.
Confidentiality is the terminology I'm looking for. So even if an incident has happened, there is, even if the incident has happened in the presence of the internal complaints committee, they're still not allowed to intervene because it breaks confidentiality of the fact that such an incident has happened, right? So we need to understand that if there is ever a case of child sexual abuse, please do not proceed with an internal complaints committee investigation. Please just report it to the police, right? So we'll write about.
Because under the mandate of the POXO Act, nobody has the authority to deal with such kind of complaint, abuse with the child in complaint. So it has to, as per the section 21 of POXO Act, it has to be reported to the police. It's mandate.
So what about the provision for mandatory reporting in POXO? How do you feel about that then? Do you feel that is fair? We all understand mandatory reporting for POXO Acts?
Yes,
Section 18 and 21. I'm actually confused if it's
21,
18 or
21,
21.
21.
Yes. So what about that? Do you feel it is fair? Or is it all right? Do you think that breaks confidentiality?
It all depends on the circumstantial situation as well. Because many times, if there is a child abuse, suppose in the child care home, and
Ma'am, can we
the
have a
children.
shorter response? Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. I just want a shorter response. Like, don't you think that also is against confidentiality technically? If you have a child who has confided in someone that there has been a sexual harassment or there has been a sexual abuse component, but I don't wish to report. But under mandatory reporting, you still have to report about sexual harassment. So what would we do then? What should we do then? Is it fair? Don't you think we are only breaking confidentiality of the child then? How does that work?
It has to be reported.
Yes,
As
it has
per
to be
my
reported.
understanding.
But I'm talking, you're absolutely right. On the point of law, you're correct. But if we look at a more trauma-informed approach, do we see how POXO fast-track courts are? I mean, with all due honesty, it's supposed to be fast-track, but there are also cases where POXO case they say that let us do a settlement. So, I mean, it's very tough, and it's so tough to talk about POXO and its intersection with how if a child is brought to an adult setup in a workplace. I can't even fathom how difficult it might be to sort of talk about. But no, thank you, Ritu ma'am. We appreciate your response. So we'll talk about burden of proof. So any idea on what is the burden of proof under the POSH Act? We have a very famous case law for it.
It lies with the respondent only, as per the POSH Act.
But what is the threshold? You're talking about the party. What is the threshold? What is the threshold of burden of proof? Come on, everybody, we are law school students, right? Have we understood preponderance of probability? Have we understood beyond reasonable doubt?
Yes,
It is a
participate.
sorry, ma'am. Presumption of commission of an act.
Yes, you're absolutely right. So we'll see how the burden of proof is for cases. So when it comes to a civil liability, it is going to be till preponderance of probability, like how likely is an incident of this happen. However, when it comes to criminal liability, it has to be proved beyond reasonable doubt. So, for example, if you have Section 75 Bharatiya Nyaya Sahita complaint, you will have to prove it beyond reasonable doubt that yes, that incident has happened. You need to have the necessary evidences in place. However, when your internal complaints committee inquiry is there, your ICC has powers of a civil bench of magistrates. So they can just have to have the basic threshold being preponderance of probability. We have the Medha Kotwal case talking about this to just showcase that how likely is an incident like this that has happened as the threshold of burden of proof to be referred to. So on the international perspective, I have something which I thought is very important to introduce. We've had the United Nations and the General Assembly talk about conflict-related sexual violence for the past few years, quite a lot, particularly in the Russia-Ukraine perspective, and also in the Israel-Palestine perspective. Would anybody have an idea about what is conflict-related sexual violence? Or would anybody want to sort of highlight that a little? Have you heard about this terminology in the international perspective? And I understand this is going to be a next step from sexual harassment, but it's very important to understand internationally how things like this are existing. Any idea? Would anybody want? If not, I will go ahead and proceed with the response. Because
Please
I would like
explain.
Yes. All right. So we all understand war crimes and crimes against humanity. Yes. No. Sorry, I've had no response. So let me explain a little more. If there, let me show the newspaper clipping. Actually, do we see this newspaper clipping? This is a recent incident where an Israeli soldier had sexually assaulted and raped a Palestinian prisoner. And I understand this is an aggravated form of sexual harassment because it is physical assault and rape. But I also want to talk about is how for the Israeli soldier, his workplace is the ground where he's supposed to fight a war. And for the prisoner is the unfortunate incident of not only being detained, and within his detention, of course, being punished is something that, you serve as a detention statement. However, to be punished with safety and respect and dignity is also very important, something which is being violated here. So in the international context, what we have to think about is how are such instances being dealt with? So much so, in fact, I have recently done a summer school on conflict-related sexual violence, and we understand how UN peacekeeping forces work. Do we know what are UN peacekeeping forces? Any idea?
Yes, ma'am. In the case
Yes.
of conflict or something,
Yes,
they
if
come
there is
to
an armed conflict which is national or international in nature, sometimes the UN they send forces from the UN peacekeeping. Sorry, I'm going to deal with comments later. Yes, so they send a UN peacekeeping force, defense personnel on ground to aid and assist. And we've also had instances where there have been complaints that UN peacekeeping forces have withheld, food supplies and aid, and used it as a barter for seeking sexual favors. And we also need to understand what is happening. How are we prosecuting people from maybe the UN peacekeeping forces? Any idea? Is it within the domestic legislation or is it something internationally? Do we know how that proceeds? Because they do have diplomatic immunity, UN peacekeeping forces. So it's a very important aspect for us to see that in the international perspective, when it comes to conflict and war, the International Criminal Tribunal for Yugoslavia, the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, both of these instances in Yugoslavia and Rwanda had a series of sexual violence which was used to propagate and further the agenda of war. And how both of these tribunals stated that there needs to be a formal process to recognize the role that sexual violence plays in conflict and war. And we've had two very important cases which talked about the recognition of sexual violence and how we should prosecute such crimes and move forward. So with not only within the perspective of crimes against humanity and war crimes, but also have a proper mandate to tackle conflict-related sexual violence. And the best example for this was this, and how sexual violence within its component does have an element of sexual harassment associated. I understand this was maybe a different perspective on sexual harassment than what we study internationally, but I thought that this was important to do. Sorry, so I think I'm almost at the end of my presentation. Kapish sir, I wanted to seek your consent for something. The video that I am going to play is going to have some adult content because of the nature of subject matter that we are talking to. If everybody is comfortable and okay with it, we can proceed or we can skip it also. I'm sorry, I was hoping to share the link with you before the session. However, I missed out on that.
I hope participant all are comfortable
Yes,
with
I
this.
hope.
We
Yeah,
should,
because if
yeah.
not, if I can also pause on the bit which I feel is confusing. So this is a small BBC. Oops. Well, I'm sorry. Let me try and play it from YouTube. Maybe that will be better. Sorry. Sorry, I'm going to have to stop screen share for this one. Sorry.
I think sorry, we are not able to see the video. It's not playing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wait. Now I think there's something wrong. Sorry. So I have this very interesting video. What I can do is I can share a link with everybody, and maybe they can take it forward from there. We can skip it for now because there seems to be some loading error. So this is actually a very interesting video about we have somebody who's a bartender and who has a new co-worker who comes to work in, and how he's trying to persuade her and try and receive a response from her, which showcases that yes, she's ready for an intimate relationship, but how the conflict happens, and it's on that. It's very interesting as a case study. I'm just apologizing that maybe we'll try and do it in the end through a YouTube video. So let's look at a few best practices globally, and how maybe all of us can also play a role. But when we can think global, but we can start small at maybe our own individual level. So if you're ever interacting with a survivor or a victim, please give them the right of choice. They should feel comfortable in proceeding with or interacting with who they feel or comfortable with. There's no point coercing a particular response, and I think this is something which is completely missing when it comes to POXO offenses. Mandatory reporting at a certain level steals and denies a child of the choice. And I understand that children being vulnerable is very important. It's important to report so that other children are not vulnerable to such instances. But if you look at the life cycle of a POXO trial, we've seen it go on for years, and the impact it has on courts, which are unfortunately not very trauma informed, is tough. So choice is a very important principle. The other aspect is informed consent. So to all of us who are interested in doing research with victims of sexual harassment, please remember, make sure you have an informed consent form. You're all lawyers. I'm sure you'll be able to draft one very well. And, ensure that they feel that comfort level with you to interact and go ahead and seek the redressal that they feel comfortable with. Also think about confidentiality. It's another best principle which has been practiced everywhere. So we need to give them that. We also need to extend reporting assistance. So in India, if we have the complaints committee come across a complaint, they also have to mandatorily tell the victim that she has recourse to a criminal complaint, and if she feels comfortable, we can assist her in complaining. So you can assist by saying things like they're okay, make sure, can you do something for them. But of course, please only intervene if you can physically help someone. If you feel that you can't, it's all right. And if you're not the internal complaints committee, that's all right. We can also try to de-escalate a situation. Sometimes, like say for example, if in a train you see two people having a very heated discussion which could escalate into something, you can try and de-escalate only if you feel comfortable. You can offer them a way out. You can say, would you like to come sit here, or ask them a question and distract them. You can also have some mandatory bystander reporting strategies where, do we all understand bystander effect? Any idea on what the terminology means? Yes? Sorry? Any idea what the bystander? Sorry, I do have a chat. Yes, so we do have some people who are aware of it. So it's very important that, if a bystander, if you witnessed an incident, you should assist them. You should say, what, I'm going to make a note, I'm going to assist you in complaining about this, and I'm going to hope and make sure that your case becomes stronger. There's also something on community action. So this is something that I saw recently in the UK, and this is their transport department, so their trains and metros, and they said that they stand united against hate, that we are not going to accept any hate crimes, we are not going to accept any drunken abuse of staff or any sort of abuse of staff. So this is a very interesting way to put community action together for sexual harassment. And I think lastly, what victims would want is just somebody to be kind, patient, and considerate with them. And I think this is the most important mandate of all that we have sort of just tried to cover. So I'm all, sir, if we still have time, I can do the presentation. If not, however, I do have a feedback link here. If I can put it on the chat, or you can scan the QR and respond to it. Sorry, I think there seems to be something wrong with the link. If you can all scan it, that would be great. So do you think we'll have some time? Sorry, I didn't. We are at 12.
Yes, we have time. Let me scan.
Sorry, wait, let me send you the link again. I'm sorry, I've just been hassled. I have a different computer today, so I'm a little uncomfortable with this. I will just take a moment and I will get back with everybody on.
Yeah, I've shared in the group.
Link. Yeah, the QR code is working, unfortunately.
I've scanned. I've scanned
the link.
I've scanned and shared in the group that link.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I'll share this also, so it's relatively easier. Sorry, just a minute.
The participant, I have dropped the link in the our group, so please go through it.
So I would love to do the video too. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. Let me just share the feedback link again. I would just require a moment. But I'm happy to take any questions meanwhile if needed.
Yes, participant will take up 3-4 questions. And then I have already dropped the link in the chat box, our group. So please go through it. If it doesn't open. So participant, you can raise your hand. We'll take up 3-4 questions before we close. So we started with Amit Kumar. Over to you.
Yeah, good afternoon. I have just one small question that you said, minor children's, ICC cannot investigate.
Yes.
But as per our, this Apprentice Act, we are allowing to, engage 15 age of the 15 people also into our workplace and all.
Yes.
So related to that, if anything will come up, so ICC will not be investigate the matter.
Well, technically, they still fall under the definition of minor, under 18. We are breaching confidentiality. So there has actually been no case on this yet. I mean, I don't know a case where I, as a ICC member, was told to intervene in a case in a school, to which I said that no, I'm not going to intervene because it is violating confidentiality. And I told the committee to not interfere and just report it to the police. So that's there. But it's also important to understand that CBSE now has a guideline which says that in case there is an incident of sexual abuse in school, there is going to be a small committee which is going to help the victim complaint and go ahead and make an internal report, but they cannot per se investigate like how an ICC does. Like they can speak to the victim, get a timeline, they can speak to the respondent, get a timeline, but interacting more with the victim because they're a victim of sexual harassment or abuse or aggravated assault or whatever the nature of the incident, it will lead to a lot of secondary victimization. So that is one provision that is there, but as such, the internal complaints committee should not investigate because it breaches confidentiality. Because your committee has a lot of people, right? Committee has 3 members, 5 members. You will end up discussing so many details about it with everybody because they're the committee, you're supposed to interact. So that will be a challenge. It can be set aside and you can also have a penal action against you for breaching confidentiality. So it's unprecedented. Nobody has had such action before, but that's the legislation as on date.
Ma'am, I have a question.
One second,
Yes.
ma'am, one by one. Sorry, ma'am. Harshita Dubey.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, over to you. Raise your hand.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Good evening. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Yes, good afternoon. Please
Ma'am,
go
my
ahead.
question is, what should an employer do if a complaint of sexual harassment is received from anonymous sources?
So we are only talking about the international perspective, but yes, an anonymous complaint cannot be dealt with. It needs to have a name. But on a best practice, maybe what you should do, something maybe the law doesn't say is, you should still do a small meeting to find out what has happened, maybe, call the respondent and say that there has been an incident, but legally that person is not entitled to give you a response because there is no as such written complaint. But globally, what we've seen, like some practices in MNC, is that even if there is an anonymous complaint, that person has to be called upon, told to be, that do you think, can you let us know what happened that day? Where were you? Can you give us some details about your day? So as a best practice, the committee should meet, make a small, report of a day like this. But on a legal level, no, they are not entitled to do anything unless and until there is a written complaint with details.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am.
So next, Krupasa.
Ma'am, in continuation of Mr. Amit Kumar's question about 15 years plus and 18 till 18 age, if there are some children involved, so definitely if it's an aggravated form of sexual assault or something, will go under POXO. But the definition provided under POSH Act includes women of any age.
Yes,
so
it
if
does.
it is verbal abuse,
Yes.
so can we move ahead with POSH?
Why do you want to include POSH in it? You already have a primary legislation for children who face harassment at any environment, but it also talks about a mandate of confidentiality. So it's best not to proceed under POSH because it will lead to a lot of traumatization. See, why do we do inquiries? Because we want to help someone, right? How often do inquiry proceedings, fall under the nature of help? Even to an adult victim. We all know about the Bhanwari Devi case, right? Why we've had the POSH legislation in place to begin with. Are we aware of the case?
Yes, ma'am.
Do we also know that the Jaipur lower court, that the decision they had passed justified the physical act of assault by saying things like that the sarpanch of a village cannot rape, that if there are family members involved in a sexual act, that's not possible because a nephew will never engage in a sexual act in front of the grandfather. I mean, these are court proceedings. These are things that have been mentioned in the order. So it showcases such a dark side of the redressal mechanism, which is not, I mean, it is just not victim friendly. Now imagine a small child who has undergone something like this. It's unfortunate enough that you have to interact with the police, give them details, go to the court, give your statement, have your written arguments given, everything, do all of that. Okay. And come back to the IC, also do the same thing. I just find it traumatizing for a child. So, in the cases that have come before me from the school, I have stated that only the committee which is supposed to assist the child as per CBSE guidelines. So we understand that there are no guidelines for like maybe a non-CBSE school, but only the committee can assist the victim in complaining to the police. And that's where I would draw the line.
Thank you.
Okay, last question. Ruby ma'am, are you there? Yes, Ruby ma'am. Yes, Ruby madam, are you there?
Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, sir.
Yes,
Thanks
yes.
a lot for giving a very informative and excellent session, ma'am. I had a question. Ki
Yes.
suppose now of late many women are going abroad.
Yes.
So our Indian women I'm talking about, and
Yes,
suppose
yes.
they are falling victim there, so
Yes.
all the provisions will be applicable for them, or they have to come to India for
See, so technically it will depend upon your place of work. So say for example, if I am part of the Indian government who has gone to say China as an ambassador or as a diplomat and have been a victim of the incident there, I can raise a complaint there as well as in India. But at the same time, say for example, if I'm a private entity, if I am a non-resident Indian who say works in Sweden maybe, then my recourse will be in a Swedish company only. If it is an Indian company, then yes, you can raise a complaint. But okay, so for POSH legislation, one thing which is very bad is confidentiality. So say for example, if I am an Indian national who works in Sweden in an Indian company, okay, the parent company has to be Indian company, then I will think that I can raise a complaint. They can help me also, but you know what will happen? The respondent, when they will do an appeal, they will say that if there is an internal committee at Sweden, your recourse is only in Sweden. By having a recourse in India, you've broken confidentiality, and they will set aside a decision.
Yes, yes.
That you unnecessarily involved people in India who did not have any jurisdictional, physical, geographical jurisdiction over it when you already had an IC in Sweden. As an IC in India, you will have to help. You cannot ignore it. You will have to help. But the best practice to make sure that the victim genuinely gets help will be at that physical place itself.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. God bless. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you very much. Sorry, participant, we won't be able to take more questions. I think most of the things have been answered. So I request our team member Nasreen to give a forum vote of thanks to Miss Nikita. Over to you.
Okay, so thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I, Nasreen Farooq, on behalf of the Pro Bono India and Pro Bono Club, Kashmir Law College, would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to Nikita Opal ma'am for taking the time to share her knowledge and insights with us today. In addition, I also wish to thank Dr. Kalpesh and Mr. Yahya Ibrahim for their continuous support in making this event possible. Moreover, ma'am, your presence made this event exceptional. We hope to welcome you again in the future. Safe travels, and thank you once more. It's over to you, Kalpesh, sir.
Thank you very much. Yes, yes. So look forward to you, Miss Nikita, for your future, program. So we'll love to hear from you in whatever program we plan in near future. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, sir. Thank you everybody for your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So participant, now request we will take up 15-20 minutes. We will take up some oral feedback from you before we conclude our this 1 week program on project. So anybody like to open? So I request you can introduce yourself and then name, designation, institutions, and whatever feedback or any remarks that you want to say. So
Yes, sir. I
starting.
would like to give. I would like to give good afternoon, Kalpesh sir,
Yes, yes, yes.
and my co-explorers with the POSH Act. Thank you so much for giving us an opportunity to go through all these, case studies and the information about POSH Act. We were aware of this POSH Act, but not so much in details. Not in so much. I think everybody will agree to me. And all the resource persons were highly commendable and very, very excellent sessions given deliberations here. And the best of the best, what I liked was of means I'm talking about good, better, best. The best of best also is there. So that I will be other resource person should not feel bad. They are also highly commendable. But best of the best are Vijay Lakshmi ma'am and Dr. Vijay Lakshmi ma'am, sorry, and Dr. Hardik sir from Kashmir, I think so, and
G-
right now Nikita ma'am. All three of them are best of the best, and I think that we will be moving ahead with all these case studies and the information given by Nikita ma'am and Vijay Lakshmi ma'am. We will be able to, I think, help women around who are falling victim to POSH. Thank you so
Thank you,
much
ma'am.
giving me opportunity to speak. Thank
Yeah,
you so much.
thank you very much, ma'am. I request Dr. Asha Verma to say something. Yeah.
Thank you, Kalpesh sir. I hope I'm audible. So I would like to first of all thank Kalpesh sir and Yaha sir for taking up this initiative. And as Madam was also telling that Ruby ma'am was also telling that we already know about the law. We teach also the act as a part of my curriculum also. I also teach this act under labor laws, but when it comes to looking at the different perspectives, that also from the point of view of the experts who were deliberating the sessions in this program, it was commendable. And every expert who has taken out the time to explain the provisions and to deal with the different perspectives of the act, that was amazing. And we could learn a lot from this 1 week certificate program. So thanks a lot, sir, for giving us this opportunity to learn from the experts. It was the galaxy of experts who were here in these sessions, starting from the academicians to the practitioners, the trainers. We could get the opportunity to learn from all of them and to have a look at the different perspectives of the POSH Act. So that was really, really very good initiative that was taken up by both the clubs of Kashmir and Pro Bono India. So we are really very, very thankful to you. And the best part of it was that every session exceeded 1 hour. So our queries, they were also very well taken care. None of the resource persons, they were in hurry. They very patiently, they were listening to our queries. They were explaining it very well. And the kind of patience that they were having, that is really, really a very interesting part of this certificate program. And once again, we are thankful, and we hope that in future also such kind of certificate programs with different topics, and even I think POSH, maybe there's a lot of scope which now we can take up through the different sessions which we can organize in the future. So thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for your kind words. Next, Darshan. Yes, Darshan.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. So, thank you, sir, for this opportunity. And I just want to thank all the organizers who had made this event very successful. And every session, like from past 1 week, every session that we are taking has given us enlargement of knowledge. As all of us know about this act, but it was just like most important things was like everyone explained it very well without no urgency, and everyone made us like a clear understanding. It is clearly made a pattern way so that it is made stuck into the minds. And it was a great session. Thank you, sir, for this opportunity. And we all loved it, and we will be waiting for your next sessions too. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Darshan. Next, let me ask Sarmishta Majumdar.
Thank you so much. A very good afternoon to everyone here. And a special thank you for this opportunity, especially because I do not belong from the legal background. and hence this particular training program has
Yeah,
been
so ma'am, you can
extremely.
introduce. Sorry, if you can introduce yourself, so we can come to know.
Yeah.
So we
So
presume all are from law background. I think. Yeah, over
yes.
to you.
So I am a freelance trainer with around 22 years of experience across different industries. So with IT and finance and other training institutes as well as organization. I'm a corporate trainer and college as well, campus to corporate. So this particular POSH has always been, I have always been interested in knowing about it, but not really getting real opportunity to sit through a program. And thank you so much, especially because as I could understand, most of the participants are from legal background and I come from a non-legal background. At times, it was a little challenging for me to understand when detailed legal acts are being discussed, but then again, it was really very informative. One question that has been coming to my mind from the very first day is that since most of them are from legal background, they have the path to raise awareness about POSH. So I come from a non-legal background. So how can I raise awareness about POSH professionally?
So you're asking question to us, or you
Yes,
are
because
putting. Yeah. So
which of course the feedback, because this has been a very, very enlightening session for me. Thank you so much to all the trainers here.
Definitely. I can, ma'am, like if you get some known friend who are practicing, it will be a good combination. You and your friend can take up this initiative to make people aware about this app. So that will be more because sometimes not always a law, but law and the psychological part and then sociological part things also come into picture. I hope you are expert in that particular domain. So that will be a very good combination when you go for training. You and your lawyer friend, or maybe a student expert, maybe senior, they can also associate with you and do some programs.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Next, Amit Kumar.
Good afternoon, everybody. Myself, Amit Kumar. Actually, I am in-house legal counsel for the last 2 decades. I have worked in multiple organizations. This course is completely, has changed my view and all, because I am since long I am in the IC committee and all. This course content, this course design, everything is in such a manner. So it has given me, every classes has given me a new learning kind of things. And all credit and thanks goes to Kalpesh sir and Pro Bono, Kashmir Law College and their whole team. The punctuality, timing, the courses when we started, curriculum and contents. The Kalpesh sir is sending in the WhatsApp group. I remember because I was having a confusion with regard to fees of the external member. So he has supplied so many materials so that it has given me a clear vision kind of thing. So thank you, Kalpesh sir. And this type of course is required for professionals, those who are working day and night in the field also. I extend my whole thankful to whole team for conducting this day. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Next, Krupasa.
Namaste, sir. Namaste, all the participants. I'm Krupa Shah. I'm from GLS University, Ahmedabad. I'm a research scholar there, and I'm pursuing my PhD on the subject of POSH Act itself. So, sir, I would really thank you as part of my study, I've gone through multiple literatures. I've done multiple literature reviews, but no other literature has provided me this kind of clarity what a capacity building training has provided me. So I'm really thankful that I've got answers to some unanswered questions so far. So thank you so much. And it was my first time being participant in your capacity building training. So from now onwards, I'll join other sessions as well. And all the trainers were really wonderful in providing us the clarity. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Next, Harshita Dubey.
Good afternoon, sir. So first of all, I'm really thankful to organizing this session, and this means this session was really effective and informative session. Ensure a clear structure by outlining objectives, flowing logically through topics, and ending with a summary. And first, additionally, engage participants with interactive elements like discussions or question answer, and tailor the content of their needs with relevant information is much good. And I'm always thankful to you all for organizing this session, and thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much, Harshita. Next, I think Miss Nikita, you raised your hand. Yeah.
Sorry, sir, I didn't know, was I supposed to stay back or leave, but then I thought I should.
No,
And,
yeah.
to what Sharmishta ma'am said before, I was hoping, is it okay if I respond to that?
Yeah, please.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Sharmishta ma'am, I think there is no disability in not being a lawyer. In fact, I have done my master's from Tata Institute of Social Sciences. So I understand, what a social worker brings to the platform. And I think for trainings, particularly, sexual harassment often gets confused with harassment, bullying. So on the theoretical aspect, it will be interesting to know how a training material could be developed on technical aspects like this. We can also think about how building a trauma-informed approach in sexual harassment cases is so important, and how do we build trauma-informed approach? And I don't think lawyers actually are the most trauma-informed people to begin with. So if you don't mind me asking, Sharmishta ma'am, can I know your background? Like, are you from a social work background? Is that the case? Oh, I think Sharmishta ma'am's probably not there.
Yes, Sharmishta ma'am.
I think she's probably not there, sir. But never mind.
No. You rightly stated, it's a good call. We are not expert. As a lawyer, law student, teacher, we are not expert to understand counsel. We just think
true,
from this perspective only, laws, rules, regulations,
prosecution.
Very mechanical we do. So it's when there's a
sir.
combination of this law, we call it law is a social science, but we are not that social scientists as such, unfortunately.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, precisely what you said at the beginning of it, that, you don't only need lawyers, but yes, I think that's it. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you very much. So any last feedback, participants? Sorry, what's the name? Yeah, Gangadhara Rao. Yes, please.
Good afternoon. I am Gangadhara from Guntur, student of first year of LLB. I thought the subject almost last 1 week completely covered total subject, particularly importance of ICC. I am grateful to the organizers and the teachers participated in this program. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, sir. Any other last remarks? Anything?
Kalpesh sir.
Bully. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yes, good afternoon. Yes.
Because of I am the last participant, so would like to speak in Hindi because of Hindi is our मातृभाषा.
Yes.
So मुझे बड़ी खुशी है पहले सबसे पहले आप सबके एफर्ट का जो ये एक हफ्ते का जो कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम एक बना कश्मीर लॉ कॉलेज से और प्रो बोनो इंडिया से, तो सर इसके लिए मैं ऑर्गेनाइजिंग कमेटी का बहुत शुक्रगुजार हूं और बहुत धन्यवाद करता हूं. सब फैकल्टीज ने बहुत ज्यादा मेहनत की है अलग अलग एरियाज पे. अगर मैं शुरुआत से बात करूं तो जेंडर सेंसिटिविटी का और उसको पोश एक्ट के साथ कंबाइन करके जो शुरू का जो बहुत पहला प्रसाद सर का जो लेक्चर था वो बहुत ही अच्छा इंटरेस्टिंग था. और बाद में जो इंटरनेशनल पर्सपेक्टिव जो निकिता मैम ने लेकर उसको जो है पूरा का पूरा फिनिश किया, तो एक हफ्ता कैसे बीत गया पता भी नहीं लगा. इसमें जो एक हमारे लिए लर्निंग हुई बिकॉज ऑफ जो इंडस्ट्री पर्सपेक्टिव है और इंडस्ट्री प्लेटफॉर्म है, जब हमें लेबर लॉ के साथ काम करना होता है और आजकल लेबर लॉ में सबसे ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है कि मिनिमम वेजेस भी नहीं मिल रही है, ओवर टाइम भी कन्फिस्केट हो जाता है नीचे की जो बॉटम लेबर है. और जेंडर जस्टिस तो एक बहुत बड़ा ऑब्जेक्टिव है, लेकिन इस ऑब्जेक्टिव को अगर हम सब लोग सोसाइटी के जो वी कैन से के बुद्धिजीवी लोग हैं, अगर इसको लें तो हम जो है वाकई में समाज में एक जस्टिस, इक्विटी एंड गुड कंसाइंस जो है उसका एक सिद्धांत स्थापित कर सकते हैं। शर्मिष्ठा मैम जैसे बता रही थी कि एक वो लोग बैकग्राउंड से नहीं है, बिल्कुल, लेकिन जरूरी नहीं है। जो निकिता मैम ने बिल्कुल सही कहा कि हमारे लिए लॉयर होना जरूरी नहीं है, हमारे लिए जिम्मेदार होना जरूरी है। और जो लेबर लॉ की इस वक्त की समस्याएं आ रही हैं, मैं देखता हूं स्टैंडिंग ऑर्डर में भी, जो कि एक एसओपी है एक इंडस्ट्री का, उसमें भी आज जो है पोस्ट मेंशन नहीं है, जो कि होना चाहिए। मेरी रिक्वेस्ट है ऑर्गेनाइजिंग कमेटी से कि जो ये एक हफ्ते का लेक्चर है, इसको जो है थोड़ा सा टच दिया जाए लेबर लॉज के साथ भी, और इसको 1 महीने का बनाया जाए, ताकि इसके ऊपर और ज्यादा जो है हम रिसर्च कर सके। मेरा ये एक वो है, और मैं फिर दोबारा से आप सबको धन्यवाद देता हूं। मैनी थैंक्स फ्रॉम माय साइड, कल्पेश सर, टू यू स्पेशली, थैंक्स अ लॉट, थैंक यू।
Thank you, Asghar Ali, for your insightful remarks. Last, we'll take up feedback from Ujjwala ma'am. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. I was not able to unmute myself earlier. I congratulate the entire team for such a wonderful sessions, all the speakers and participants also. Very interactive sessions were there, and they were really helpful. I think the topics were chosen very, very cautiously and with the application of mind, and it has really helped me to gain in-depth knowledge about the subject. Thank you very much, sir. I'm grateful to all of you.
Yeah, thank you very much, ma'am. I request Dr. Krishna Mehta, as a part of our resource person, part of our team, to say something before we conclude. Then I will give my inputs also. Yeah, Dr. Krishna, over to you.
Thank you. Am I audible, Kalpesh bhai?
Yeah, audible.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Gupta and the Ibrahim sir and the whole core committee. I have attended this session, and I also was one of the resource person. I'm communicating this, that the journey does not end here after learning about the law. I think we all are informed citizens. You all are informed citizens now. Please start creating awareness about this law, about this topic. And it is a joint responsibility of every stakeholder to keep our workspaces safe. Personally, I would like to thank all the speakers. Of course, I also learned, though having the experience in this field since many years, law, and a lawyer is a learner. So I also learned, and especially, I don't know whether Nikita ji is around or not, but I really enjoyed her session in terms of slides and the content and the crispness which she had. So I think the day is ending with a note that there is a ray of hope. When society fails, law has to take care. And yeah, I think let us hope that our workspaces and the space across ourselves remains safe. Thank you, everyone. All of you have shown the interest in terms of questions, interaction. I really enjoyed speaking the other day. And yeah, I think we shall stay connected. We are a small community of academicians and professionals. Thank you so much. Have a good Sunday ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Krishna. So,
Sarji, one query is there. 1 minute, 1 second only, Sarji. We are doing all this for the sake of benefit of the society of everyone, Indian or foreign, whatever. But one thing I want to know, as Asghar Ali said about the payment and all that. So when we are giving training for these people, where we are invited, we have to charge them, or how much? वो भी एक प्रश्न है कि फ्री में करना है या पैसे लेने हैं या कितने
देखिए बहुत जगह पे, फॉर एग्जांपल लेट मी, देखिए मेरी बात, लाइक इट्स अप टू यू। एट सर्टेन पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम पीपल डोंट चार्ज, दे गिव सर्विस, दे डोंट एक्सपेक्टेशन, जो मिला वो ले लिया। समटाइम्स पीपल कोट आल्सो, आई टेक दिस मच एज अ बीइंग आईसीसी मेंबर आल्सो, ये चीजें हैं। सो दिस हैपेंस, हमको भी कभी बुलाया जाता है, सो आई डोंट आस्क, जो भी फॉर एग्जांपल जो मिला ले लिया, कभी नहीं भी मिलता है, इट आल्सो हैपेंस। इट्स अप टू यू, रन राइट टू पर्टिकुलर पर्सन, right?
Mostly mine is free only, just for the sake of information.
Yes,
Thank you, sir.
और कहीं कहीं रहता ही है, ऑब्वियसली, ऑलमोस्ट आई वुड से, कहीं कहीं नहीं भी होता है, सो डोंट वरी, राइट? कहीं कहीं थोड़ा हमें, we have to do some
Just
personal
for
social
information, general information.
नहीं या नहीं ऐसा पर्सनल आई वुड से पर्सनल सोशल रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी थोड़ा थोड़ा बराबर जहाँ मौका मिले 30-20-30% ये तो कर सकते हैं बराबर 50-60% विल गेट मनी तो थोड़ा यहाँ भी आप कर सकते हैं सो बिफोर विल कंक्लूड लाइक जैसे मैंने बताया था आई इन्फॉर्म इन द बिगिनिंग राइट सो this is the third program with the Kashmir Pro Bono Club, Kashmir Law College. So, Mr. Yahya Ibrahim, like we were in connect I would say for more than a year so we are like I was also faculty coordinator pro bono club at Par University so we are in touch so he initiated so let us plan something so we did 10 days the capacity building program on legal aid allied laws what very good response before this we did the right to education again it's very important I would say like I'm feeling proud to organize right personally to organize this program especially and that POSH was not in my list so Dr. Shraddha, like I told you, we met a couple of months back at my, she came to Vadodara, so she suggested us plan this, POSH program. So it was in my mind, and then I also suggested to Mr. Yahya Ibrahim, let us plan these things, and it, I'm like I would say it's turned out very well. The kind of responses we are getting. I hope. All the participants they've been benefited at the end. Then wherever you are, you just do some awareness program on take maximum I would say benefit of this program. I hope you have taken and to reach out to people at masses, whatever you learned. It's not like so that is fine. We know as a faculty, especially certificate values, we have to show to our institutions what we have done in one particular program as a part of our academic exercise that from APIs form that we fill up. But that is fine. But practically just utilize whatever you learned in last 1 week. I request now before we conclude. So sorry, Dr. Krishna. So, as I told you, we are not experts. So, I requested Dr. Shraddha and Dr. Krishna to make it comprehensive 1 week program because, especially to benefit the faculty, because, it's required at least 1 week or 2 weeks program that way to add some value to the curriculum, their the professional the career. So, that way we planned, I requested them and they come up with very good schedule. And then I approached already. There was no much difficulty, I would say, to getting the resource person about this particular program and then structure very well I would say for 1 week and then comprehensive one it will I think will example for all the future like organizer who will be planning something on the project now I request Mr. Yahya Ibrahim to give final thought views and then we will conclude today's program. Yes, Mr. Yahya Ibrahim, over to you. Are you there? Hello. Hello. I hope I am audible.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Let me ask you, then we'll close. Yes, Mr. Yahya Ibrahim, are you there?
He seems to be in the meeting, but I think he's on mute. Whether he's around or not, we don't.
We are not able to reach out to him. He's not there. Yeah. So Nasrin would like to say something on behalf of Kashmir Law College Pro Bono Club. Then we'll close. Over to you, Nasrin, if you are there. Nasrin, are you there? There is an issue. Yeah, Pooja Lakshmi, I request you. You just give your final thought and we'll close. Yeah.
Yes, I think there might be an issue with yes, Nasrin ma'am and Yahya sir, which actually happens a lot. But I hope the recording is available for them as well. So I hope everyone enjoyed the sessions 1 week as a crisp time, and we will definitely plan for a 1 month program if it permits. Then I hope everyone learned a lot and would take it forward. And That's all from my side. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much for the participants for joining, and look for the future program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.